The UFC heads to Abu Dhabi this weekend for a big UFC 308 card, which probably hosts the biggest fight that they could have of the year in terms of skill set. And we have Ilia Topuria looking to defend his featherweight title for the first time against former champion and featherweight kingpin Max Holloway. Very fun fight there. And then obviously in the co-main event, 5-rounder between Khamzat Chimaev and former champion Robert Whittaker. High stakes in the main event and co-main event. Also, Magomedov Ankalaev looking to take on Alexander Rakic and stake his claim for a title shot against champion Alex Poatan Bahera. It will likely take a highlight reel finish for him to get the love of the UFC to put him in that position. But we'll see how that transpires. Great card all around. A reminder that it kicks off at 10 a.m. Eastern time, the early prelims, and then the main card kicks off at 2 p.m. Eastern. I love coffee and combat. My perfect timing for fights to kick off just right after waking up, right? Roughly an hour or so after waking up, getting right into the fights. So you have the rest of the evening to do whatever the fuck you want to do. So don't get caught sleeping there early start time, especially for the Pacific coasters. The West coasters, I should say, starting off at 7 a.m., even better. Honestly, I'd set an alarm for that. Another reminder, this is the quick picks version of the UFC 308 breakdown. If you're looking for the full card breakdown where I went close to an hour getting in depth for every single matchup, check out the MMA Lawcast, which I dropped earlier this week. I'll have a link for that in the description below. But again, for this segment, I go right to the point, say the exact reason why I think a certain fighter wins each matchup. I'll obviously be leaving a lot of other details out for the sake of time. And if you want to learn more about that matchup, check out the full MMA Lawcast episode. Reminder also, I've dropped the LFA 195 breakdown. LFA goes down Friday night, so there's plenty of time to still digest that. So check that out on the YouTube page. Otherwise, hope you're laced up and ready to go because we're off and running with the first fight of the night between Renat Fakhretdinov coming in against Carlos Leal. Fakhretdinov is looking to continue to build upon that win that he had over Nicholas Dalby last time, and I do think that this is a great matchup for him to go out there and grind out the short notice UFC debutant Carlos Leal, utilizing his wrestling and grappling advantage. Leal definitely deserves to be in the UFC, but this is a bad stylistic matchup for him. Look for Fakhretdinov to win this fight on the scorecards. Next up, the return of Ismail Naurdiev as he takes on Bruno Silva. I believe Naurdiev will do a good enough job in terms of mixing the martial arts and getting most of his success from that top position with his wrestling. Although he leaves some striking defense issues that Silva could take advantage of, I do believe we'll see Naurdiev avoid most of them, get this fight to the ground, grind it out, and even get some good striking opportunities for himself in certain spots. Look for Naurdiev to win this fight on the scorecards. Next up, Farid Basharat going up against Victor Hugo. Seems as though Farid is probably the better Basharat brother, as he does a great job in terms of mixing his grappling behind his educated striking, and I think that will lead to him going out there and grinding out Victor Hugo and getting the win on the scorecards. Next up, Kennedy Nzechukwu going up against Chris Barnett. This is a lopsided matchup, but very tough to trust Nzechukwu as such a big favorite, especially after the flub of a performance that he had against Ovince St. Preux last time around. But I do expect him to keep Barnett at bay, possibly find a finish over the 1.5 round mark. But I do think that Nzechukwu wins this fight. Minus 700 is just a little bit too wide. Next up, Abus Magomedov going up against Bruno Ferreira, which should likely be a car crash, but I think that the overall better advantage here for Magomedov in terms of being able to mix in the grappling when he needs to, but also his reach and length should come into play, countering the blitzing approach that we normally see for Ferreira, and that should allow Magomedov to counter him and eventually put him away, similar to what Nursultan Ruziboev did to Ferreira just a few fights ago. Look for Magomedov to win this fight by knockout. Next up, Mateusz Rebecki going up against Miktaibek Orolbai in what is sure to be a grapple-heavy matchup from both guys. I do believe Orolbai has the cardio and scrambling advantage, which should allow him to stay out of too much danger early on in this matchup and then grind this fight out, either winning a third-round finish or winning this fight on the scorecards. Next up, Jeff Neal going up against Rafael Dos Anjos. It's clear welterweight is not the greatest weight class for Dos Anjos, and I think he'll find that out once again, taking on a guy like Jeff Neal, who will do a good enough job in terms of stopping the takedowns of Dos Anjos and utilizing his striking advantage. It wouldn't surprise me if Neal is able to knock Dos Anjos out, but I ultimately lean with Neal winning this fight on the scorecards. Next up, Ibo Aslan going up against Rafael Cerqueira. Another car crash of a matchup, but I do think we'll see Cerqueira get this fight to the ground and utilize his BJJ black belt to put Aslan in bad positions, which should open up a submission opportunity for the Brazilian newcomer. Look for Cerqueira to wrap up a submission within 5 minutes. Next up, Shara Magomedov going up against Armen Petrosyan. A striker's delight here, but I do think the technically superior style of Petrosyan, being the cleaner and straighter striker here, will allow him to counter Magomedov's unorthodox style. I wouldn't be surprised to see Petrosyan mix in some grappling when he can, but I do think Petrosyan's more basic and fundamental style will allow him to grind this fight out with the striking realm, couple clinch scenarios and grappling scenarios, which should lead to Petrosyan winning this fight on the scorecards. Next up, Lerone Murphy going up against Dan Ige. Murphy looking for a big win here against a ranked opponent and following up that Edson Barboza victory he had from earlier this year in the main event slot. And I do expect him to be the better fighter overall here, from having slicker strikes and more damage on the feet to grinding Ige out in clinch positions and taking him down. Ige's boxing is usually his calling card, but I think he's going to be muzzled here by the better overall athlete and fighter as Murphy grinds this fight out and wins it on the scorecards. Next up, Magomed Ankalaev going up against Alexander Rakic. Fun fight here between two guys that are very close to title shots. Although Rakic is on a 2-fight losing streak, I do think he is deserving of being considered up there, but I think Ankalaev's overall game will be too much for him. Many people expect Ankalaev to grind Rakic out with the grapple-heavy approach, but considering the things that have kept Ankalaev from a title shot as of late, mainly being a lot of people thinking that he's boring, I think we'll see Ankalaev unleash his striking approach here, which should catch Rakic off guard and lead to a knockout victory for the Russian fighter. Give me Ankalaev by knockout. Co-main event, 5 rounds here in the middleweight division with Robert Whittaker and Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev has the early finishing threat, obviously, with his big power, but we see when Whittaker's durability holds up, he is a very dangerous fighter and probably one of the best middleweights on the planet. I do believe we'll see Whittaker deal with that early onslaught from Chimaev and start to run away with this fight in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds, where he'll either be able to get a decision victory or find big shots to put Chimaev away in the 4th or 5th round. I like Whittaker here to pull off the upset and reestablish himself amongst the top middleweights in the world. And that brings us to our main event in the featherweight division. Champion Ilia Topuria defending against Max Holloway. Topuria is a very dangerous fighter, especially with how he's developed his striking game. But I think he'll come up short against Holloway, who should be able to take his best shot and then come back with a volume-heavy approach that Topuria will not be able to keep up with. Sure, Topuria had great cardio in a matchup against Josh Emmett where he dictated the pace, but he will not have that luxury here against Holloway, who only gets stronger and more dangerous as fights get into deep waters. Look for Holloway to continue to turn up the volume and pressure in the championship rounds, which could lead to a barrage of strikes to get a TKO finish in the 4th or 5th round. And new once again, Max blessed Holloway. There you guys go. Quick picks for UFC 308. I still got the free parlay and 3 best prop bet segments dropping for you guys later this evening. So make sure you guys come back before the fights to check those out. Good luck on all your action this weekend, folks. And I'll see you guys again next week, or I'll see you guys again later today. Peace.